I'm sorry, I'm so boring.
No, that was awesome. Well, hello and welcome to this week's Midweek Mashup. This is our opportunity for our folks online to connect with our pastors in person. I'm joined this week by our Associate Minister, Will Walker. Thanks for sitting down.
Oh, thanks for having me, Matt.
Yeah, was excited to hear from you this Sunday. It's so rare that we get to hear from you on Sundays, but I always look forward to it. You have a really valuable perspective.
I had a great time, and granted that it's a class that we've already taught through Discipleship Pathway, so had a little bit of a cheat sheet.
Cheat sheet or not, I really enjoyed your sermon. We talked about bless rhythms this week. What kind of are bless rhythms, and what did we kind of talk about on Sunday?
I think that as opposed to it being a series of steps or a program, they're just different ingredients that we can add into the recipe of how we live that actually show the love of Jesus in a practical way to people.
That's so good. I've never thought about it like that, kind of like seasoning in a recipe.
Well, right. Well, look at your mom's chicken soup. Your mom's chicken soup, my mom's chicken soup. They taste totally different. But if you boil it down to what it really is chicken and water. But we all have our own ingredients that we like to throw in. So when we look at bless, we're just looking at something that David Ferguson came up with, and it took it from being a program to how do you integrate it into a part of your life. So, you have, you want to be praying. It's one of the most important things you can do for someone. You want to make sure that you're listening, that you're eating, and that you're serving, and that you're sharing your story. So I just think that the problem for me is that I look for opportunities, I think, to do good, to do good things. But the problem is that it's not a natural thing. So if something spots my eye, then I might gravitate towards it. But I don't think that I've fully incorporated these things into the way that I actually live and breathe and live my life. And I'm trying to take steps of doing this every single day.
That's so good. I mean, that's why it's not a program, right? It's a rhythm. It's like this is the way that we live our life.
Right. And I think that also, like, that your neighbors also have rhythms where that they live their life. And I think a problem for me was that I missed so many opportunities in hindsight, opportunities in my neighborhood, because I always thought that the church is the place to go, and that's where ministry starts out from there, not being wherever I'm at and wherever God has placed me. So it's really been formative for me to really see a bigger picture, and that allows me to not just participate as like a pastor, but just to show the love of Jesus practically to those around me. So, for example, one of the things is I've lived in this neighborhood for coming up on 3 years now, and I wave to people and I see people, but I don't know a lot of the people's names. So, and I noticed there was one guy that I said hi to for over a year, and we talk about different things, but we've never exchanged each other's names. And so after I went through Discipleship Pathway, I took so we walk our dogs roughly at about the same time, and if he's late, then sometimes I wait a little bit because I want to make sure that we get an opportunity to cross paths. And I used our dogs that we both walk as a way to find out what his name was. His dog's name is Sadie, and his name is Max. And what's so funny is that he says hi to not just my dog now, but also to me. So it's kind of nice.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's such a great example of how we can incorporate these sort of things in ways that we're already living our life. Right?
Yeah.
Like you have a dog, right? You walk your dog, and you see this guy while you're walking your dog. It's not really anything extraordinary, right? It's just taking that extra step and saying, like, hey, let me get to know this guy because we're walking our dogs at the same time.
Right.
I have a dog, you have a dog. We're both dog people.
Exactly. It's just kind of like, you remember when you would go to school and you would just walk by people in the hallway, and you see them, but you really don't see them.
Yeah.
You don't address them. It's just kind of you nod your head because it's kind of a social custom that we do here. But, I think that if we really want to show the love of God to the people and in the places that God has placed us, then we have to, how would I say? I think that we have to understand that Okay, so if God is sovereign, then God has placed us exactly where he wants us to be. It's just whether or not we are willing to be Jesus in that place.
Yeah.
And so I love how the message put how, God moved into the neighborhood. And so I think that's what our neighborhoods are supposed to look like when we move in. What would it look like if Jesus moved into our neighborhoods and in your form? What would that look like? And so we're taking it step by step, but I'm not doing it alone. My wife and I pray for our neighbors. My kids and I pray for our neighbors. We go on prayer walks together, and we're just we're asking God to show us, how is he already working in these people's lives and how we can bless them.
That's so cool, and it's so glad to hear that you're bringing your wife along. My wife and I go on prayer walks as well, and I think that's something that we're going to talk about in coming weeks, is how this isn't supposed to be an individual sport. Like, this is a team sport. We're supposed to bring people with us. Jesus sent people out 2 by 2 to go and minister. And so it's like, okay, how do we walk together? How do we pray together? How do we engage in community together?
And then, I think also what it helps us do is accountability. If I keep something to myself, I don't know if any of you New Year's resolutionists out there did the same thing as me, but some of that stuff has already fallen off the docket.
Right.
And so, and it's because I'm the only one that knows about what my kind of goals were or what my plans were. But when I include my wife, when I include my kids, now they notice when we don't do some of these things.
Yeah.
And so it just helps hold me accountable to just staying the course and making sure that this isn't another program. This isn't another fad that we're trying, that we're in this for the long haul just to love people.
Yeah, I really like going to the gym in February because that's when it's like not crowded again.
Totally.
Because people have fallen off their New Year's resolutions.
Right.
And I always know that I do a much better job of going to the gym and being in routine when my wife goes with me.
Right.
And so because there's that person there holding me accountable. Same thing with the blessed rhythms.
Right. And just like examples of like when my wife is the one that guides me to go on the prayer walks, it's like I think I needed her to be Jesus to me at that time, to remind me of what we're there for, not just to sit and watch what I want to watch or what I want to do, but to be, intentional with the time that we do have here to the people that wherever God has placed us. So.
Yeah. I feel like there's this weird shift that happens because I recently joined the pastoral team, and I feel like after that happened, I started making more excuses. Like, oh my gosh, I'm tired. It's cold outside. Like, it was easier to do things as a volunteer a little bit. And it's so helpful to have wives who remind us, like, hey, this is why you got into ministry.
Exactly.
Like step away from the tasks for a little while. And remember, hey, just prayer walk the neighborhood. Look and say hi to our neighbors and things like that. And remind us of, hey, this is why we do what we do.
Right. And then at the same time, I just think that, the more, when we start, obviously we all have things that we have to do, but when we prioritize tasks over people, those tasks are still going to be there, for you, but those people may not be. And you don't know what type of interaction, I don't think you know what type of relationship or you never know where somebody's at because let's be honest, all of us are a phone call away of having disastrous news. And so being evident in my neighborhood, just to take advantage of any opportunity that we have to cross paths with someone, I try to make that as part of my daily rhythm.
Yeah. I feel like you're in a really great position to talk about this specific thing. As the associate minister, you have a lot of responsibilities that are like operations sort of things. And it's like, hey, stuff has to get checked off the list. Building needs to be maintained. But also you're a minister of the gospel. And how do you balance those things? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people tuning in who feel that in their own life. Like, I have work, I have to take my kids from thing to thing. How do I incorporate blessed rhythms despite all of that?
Well, I think sometimes there are reminders that we can give ourselves. So we have the prayer of examine actually right up on near our bathroom, and that is something that reminds me to actually reflect on my day, to see if I was a blessing to anyone, if there's anybody I need to pray for, to remind me to pray for people, because just like anyone, it's really easy to get caught up in the moment or in the tyranny of the urgent, rather than really staying focused on ministry. So I think it's a balance. I think both things have to be done. But I think what happens is that we sway on one side and then we overcompensate. And I think that's why sometimes it feels like work. It feels like work is because, we're trying to make up for lost time, or we're trying to shift our balance over here, when if we would just realize that it's a balancing act. And you know what? Every day is going to be different. But allocate time to not only just the things that you have to do, but the people that God has placed you. Even with your wife, even with your kids, they deserve time. But at the same time, as a family, we're all on the same mission, which is to bless our neighborhood.
Man, that's great. I mean, it's so valuable to hear your insight as a married couple with no children. Coming from a married couple that has children, it's really valuable for me to hear your perspective on these things.
Well, I obviously talk a lot. It's just my personality, but I've realized that my children see more is caught than is taught. So I can talk to my kids about this all day till I'm blue in the face, or I can show them and bring them with me. And then what's great is hearing God come out of your children's mouth, And so I've actually learned more about God since having children. I'm really excited when you get to go down that path too. It'll be fun.
Yeah. Well, as we're talking about Blessed Rhythms and we're coming up towards the end of our Discipleship Pathway series, what encouragement do you have for our folks who are tuning in online with Blessed Rhythms, with Discipleship Pathway, and incorporating this into our daily routine?
I just think that you have to be honest with yourself and realize that I think that we give away a lot of our, not responsibility, but we give away a lot of opportunities where God is asking us to come join Him. And I think that a lot of times, I know that when I'm not on mission with God, I just actually feel the distance between me and I hate it. Like I really, really don't like it. And I just think that we were created for a purpose, and everyone has their own personal purpose, but at the same time, we are all created, in His image to love Him and to love others. And I think that loving God, I think sometimes that's the easy part. But I think loving others, relationships are messy. It's much easier to drop a prayer, a bunch of brochures from an airplane, over a stadium full of people, because, look at the coverage that you got. Right. But ministry doesn't work that way. People's lives don't work that way. And so I think God sends us to people just to show them what love looks like, what compassion looks like, what mercy, what grace looks like, and what friendship looks like. So as I know, being a dad and having a full-time position and all these responsibilities, it's really easy to fill your day with the things that will fulfill you the least. And so I think that it's the times when we partner with God, and when it's unmistakable when He shows up, those are just indicators that I'm on the right path, and that I'm taking a step more close to Jesus than stepping further away.
That's so good. Well, hey, thank you for sitting down with us and talking about Blessed Rhythms. If you want to hear more from Pastor Will, I'll go ahead and add a banner to his message on Blessed Rhythms. But until next time, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next week.
Have a great week.